Hello and welcome back to the channel. My name is Krashy, and today we're going to be diving into a solo queue tier list for the most recent patch and new season of Pokemon Unite. Now this tier list is going to cover every character in one giant tier list. I'll tell you what they're good at, what they're bad at, if they should be in lane, if they should be jungle, and overall give my thoughts on the current state of balance in Pokemon Unite. But before we dive into that, I want to give a special shout out to eWin Racing, today's video sponsor, for supporting the channel. They reached out to me and I've built a really good relationship with them to bring me a chair and to support you guys with a 20% off code in the description. So if you use code Krashy at ewinracing.com, you can get yourself 20% off of one of these amazing chairs. And honestly, I'm gonna give it to you straight. I've had gaming chairs in the past. This one has the best material, feels the most durable, legitimately holds a ton of weight, which is great for me. And yeah, I'm looking forward to using it going into the future. It's completely adjustable. You can recline in it. You can literally lean back and lay in it. I have fallen asleep in Discord in this chair. It's very, very comfortable. Has two nice pillows, one for the neck and one for my back and the lumbar support. And ultimately, it just kind of ties my setup together because I had a really old squeaky chair in here in the past, and it was honestly even messing with some of my recordings. So I definitely do appreciate them for supporting the channel and would love if you would support them and support me by using the link in the description below. So thank you so much to them. And yeah, let's go ahead and dive into the tier list. I'm going to go ahead and start with the all-rounder class, as I think all-rounders have actually been performing pretty well. Unfortunately for this all-rounder, Azumarill, I think, is actually maybe the worst character in the game right now. Azumarill, while it can lane, doesn't do it very well. While it can jungle, doesn't do it very well. And I think overall this character is just kind of missing the mark on bringing value to a team. It doesn't really survive long enough to stay in a fight and do damage, and it doesn't really do enough damage to eliminate an opponent quick enough to warrant how squishy it is. And overall, as far as the jungle or lane role goes, I think that there is just almost always a much better option. On the flip side of that, we have Aegislash. Now, Aegislash getting some really nice buffs and was always a very strong pick, or like a good option, not necessarily like a strong pick or like the best option, but is now very good. I think A+ tier. This character is probably the biggest winner, if not the second biggest winner of the most recent patch and changes. You know, Aegislash doing a lot of damage, there being less buddy barriers. This character just gets in the back line, becomes a menace. Jungles incredibly well. I don't think it's the best laner, but I also don't think that it's the worst thing that you could do. I do tend to see that Aegislashes in lane are struggling a little bit, so I definitely think it's better of a jungler. Since I don't do a jungle and a lane tier list, I'm just going to kind of give you the information one by one. I think it's really important to know that this character is much better in jungle and is performing very well right now. Dragonite, on the other hand, Dragonite's a weird one, right? Because a part of me wants to put Dragonite like higher up just because it's an all-rounder, but Dragonite's like niche has been kind of stolen from it. It has the hard objective secure, and that's great, but it doesn't team fight very well. It doesn't really have a strong presence. I don't even think Hyper Beam or the Outrage build, either one is that much better than the other, although I do think the Hyper Beam build's slightly better than Outrage build. And overall, this may be a controversial one. I like playing this character. I can find some success with this character. I just don't think it's that strong. It's definitely not a Azumarill level. It can bring value to a team in the form of having objective secure, and it can spam its Unite move for Buddy, but the Unite move itself doesn't really help it win. It's not a good laner at all. I definitely think that if you're playing this character, you have to throw it in jungle, so that definitely lowers its viability, because jungle characters, their place on a tier list is relative. I mean, everything is relative to the strength of the other characters. So if you have one jungle position, putting someone like Dragonite in that spot is just not going to be the best option. I definitely don't think it's the best option. And then we have Serena. Serena is another one that I'm a little bit on the question mark with. First of all, I pre-plan my tier list out a little bit, and then I present them. So this A and B+ tier list, these two, the line is so razor thin, it's crazy. So I'm going to go ahead and throw Serena in B+. This is easily one of those things where she could be A, and I don't really think it matters too much, but I'm going to explain it from my perspective. Serena feels good. The all-rounders in general, most of them feel really good. but I haven't had the most success with her, and she just kind of feels like it's hard to close games out with her a little bit. That said, the buffs to Buddy Barrier, or the nerfs to Buddy Barrier, are an indirect buff to her, because Serena now, when she picks an ult target, has a very high likelihood of just like eliminating that target. If you're running Stomp build, which I do think is a little bit better than Triple Axel, you can eliminate targets very, very quickly. And so I don't think that she's bad. B+ tier, still a good pick. I don't think she's bad, but laning, she's decent in lane. Jungle, she's pretty good in jungle. I just still think that, relatively speaking, there's going to be a better option over Serena. As for Lucario, I don't think this is ever going to change. I think that Lucario is S tier, mainly from the fact that this character keeps getting nerfed, and it's never really nerfed, and so it just becomes animal once it comes online at level 5. Like, this character can snowball the game so hard. If you're really good at it, I think that you're going to just destroy backline. There is the same thing with all rounders in general. It feels like the nerf to Buddy Barrier is just an indirect nerf or an indirect buff to people that are like backline divers. And so now this character can get in the backline and shred through things without getting like stuck back there with a bunch of shields surrounding its enemies. So yeah, I think that Lucario is incredible in lane. It's so frustrating in lane. You put this thing in top lane, you're stacking an attack weight, you're just all over the place. You can't really be stopped doing anything you want to do. And there are some slight like lane counters that slow it down a little bit, but overall Lucario is just literally that strong. Literally that strong. A pretty good winner this patch, I think, is Garchomp. Garchomp feels, it's the same thing, right? Like, whereas you would have to get in the backline and try to like kill and team fight the whole team, because that's kind of Garchomp's thing, right? He gets in and he just fights everybody. You just couldn't do it before. There was too many shields, there's too many Buddy Barriers, you weren't hitting anybody, you weren't actually doing enough damage to warrant it, and now that's not the case. I do think it's important to note that Garchomp Gible laning is not it. I do not recommend going in lane with Gible. I've seen people do it. I've seen some people pull it off. I'm not a huge fan of it, but I do think that Garchomp in jungle is crazy strong. It's not the best pick in the world. I think that Sword outperforms it in jungle a little bit. I think there will be other picks that outperform it in jungle, which is why, relatively speaking, it's going to be sitting here in the A tier. But yeah, Dragon combo, you put a bunch of damage on it, and yeah, the character can go pretty crazy. And the same thing goes for Charizard. This hasn't changed in a while. Charizard A tier, one of the worst laners in the game. Just gonna get it out of the way. One of the worst laners in the entire game. Please don't lane this character. It is so hard to get experience. It's so hard to last hit. You're gonna get stuck on Charmander. If you're laning Charizard, you're basically begging your team to carry you for the early game so that way you can be strong in the end game. And at that point, you could have just picked something better, or you could have gone jungle, or you can just try to jungle it in another game. But a crazy jungler, if you can actually get ahead on this character, you just start winning team fights. You just start winning team fights. And again, the same thing. Buddy Barrier nerfs, massive indirect buff to Charizard, because you have easier targets to kill. Although I don't really know if Charizard's ult was ever stopped by Buddy Barrier anyway, so it just feels free. Charizard feels really, really strong. So yeah. And then one of the other great jungler, great laner, probably a better laner because you want to stack the attack weight on it. Machamp feels great. This hasn't changed at all. Very, very solid character to run. So that's just how I feel about it. Crazy impactful Unite move in team fights. Machamp is amazing. Really, really good. All right, let's go straight into, I'm just going right down the list on this one, or my list anyways. We're going to go straight into the attackers. This is the attacker, this role, man, it's gonna get weird. Duraludon is a character that I can't quite gauge how good it is. It's not bad. It feels good. And this is one of those A, B+ tier. I don't think it matters where I put here, and I'm trying to be accurate with it. But the sentiment that I'm going to give you, no matter where I put it, is that if you play this character, it's good. You're going to do fine with it. I do think there are better picks, but that's going to be anything in the A and B+ tier anyways. I do think there are better picks, but it's solid. It can lane okay. It jungles pretty well. I think that's the best way of looking at it. I'm going to put it in B+ tier, and it feels exactly like the attacker of Serena. Like, Serena's good. I just don't think she's the best option right now, and so I kicked her down a little bit just to kind of utilize the full tier list and try to separate the tier list so it's a little bit more accurate. The irony is that it's hard for me to pick where they go. So Duraludon still has great ult. Dragon Pulse still seems pretty fine. I've had really good success with Flash Cannon recently, just bullying people off their lane. The character feels pretty solid. I think that it's better in jungle than it is in lane, obviously, just because you can kind of free farm it, and yeah, that's pretty much it. But the character feels really strong, really strong, so that's good. As for Sylveon, listen, this is another same exact thing. I can put it here, or I can put it here, and I think it's going to come down to, this is just purely subjective in my opinion. I think the character feels good, but I just think that there are better options, and so it could go either which way. I'm going to personally go ahead and put it in B+ tier. I think that Sylveon is great if you're great with it, and she power spikes early. She can dominate a lane if she can get farm. You know, I think that it feels solid, but they're just always a better laning option. And yeah, so good pick. Decent Unite move. Power spikes pretty early, and that's helpful. Solid for lane. Wouldn't jungle Sylveon ever. Not really, unless you're just kind of memeing. But yeah, solid pick. And I guess the sentiment of this video, and I think I've said this in the past, is that if you're picking anything in B+ tier and up, you're good. Like, that's what I would recommend picking. Anything like B tier and below, I probably wouldn't recommend picking it too much. As for this attacker, Alolan Ninetales is probably the best lane attacker in the game. The nerfs don't really matter. I played against a Blizzard Avalanche build Ninetales that was absolutely dominating last night too. The character is it's just a monster. It does crazy CC, it does crazy damage. It feels really strong to play. Scales well. Aurora Veil still has its mobility and damage reduction. It feels good. If anything, it's kind of an indirect buff to Aurora Veil's damage reduction because we have less shields and things. So I think that Ninetales, although it did get a slight nerf this patch, still feels incredibly consistent and really strong. As for Greninja, I think Greninja is still an S tier jungler. The character has so much potential to just snowball like crazy, and now that there's less shields, I think executing and popping off with Surf is easier. So really heavy damage. I've been playing Greninja with X attack a lot lately. There's crazy potential to take this character and just go crazy with it. I'm trying not to factor in the EXP bug a lot right now, but it's kind of hard not to, because this character, if you don't know, depending on when you're watching this video, there's currently an experience bug, and if you can get this character fed, it makes the game super snowbally. So, but that's still the case regardless. It just maybe not so intense in the future after they fix the bug. So, but regardless, I pretty much always put Greninja in S tier for solo queue, and that's the thing. This is like a solo duo trio queue. Tier list. So yeah, the character's crazy, can pop off, is an amazing jungler, terrible laner, one of the worst laners in the game. I'm always going to try to give that information. I don't think that you should jungle Alolan Ninetales either. It's fine, but you probably shouldn't. No real reason to. Greninja, one of the best junglers in the game, hands down, one of the worst laners. Do not lane this character. It is bad news. As for Cram, I think that Cram is much better. The problem with Cram, and this is such a small jump downward too, is it has like no Unite move, but it's way better than it was before, which is like, I think it like jumps up a tier or something from wherever I had it, but it's still just like not, in my mind, that worth picking. It just doesn't really feel like it does enough. It's got a great laning phase, and that's just like the best that I can say about it. I don't know. I don't really see why you would pick this character over so many laning attackers. Like, I would definitely rather have a Sylveon. Lane attacker wise, I'd probably rather have a Duraludon for the end game team fight, and then yeah, Ninetales and some other options that we're gonna get to. I just can't really see Cram being the best option right now. Cinderace, I usually put Cinderace in S tier. I actually think that it, like, carrying with it is not nearly as strong right now, although it still feels pretty good. I don't think I want to put it up there. I think I'm gonna put it A tier. It just feels like it fell down a little bit for me this patch. Competitively, it'll probably be played just fine. Terrible laner. Do not lane this Pokemon. This is a jungler through and through. And Cinderace is incredible. Still incredible. But Greninja just has that solo queue carry potential. Ironic enough, if you're playing in like a duo or trio, Cinder may be better depending on the team picks that you have. But I just think as far as like the solo perspective goes, Cinderace is a phenomenal jungler. I just personally prefer Greninja. I think Greninja has a little bit more carry potential, so I'm going to put it in the A+ tier. And then we have Pikachu. Pikachu is amazing. This is one of those other lane attackers that you should absolutely be playing if you're looking to play a lane attacker. Pikachu is one of them. Pikachu, listen, I'm going to throw this out there because I think it's not the craziest, most sensational thing in the world. It can jungle fine. There is always a better pick for jungle, pretty much. But in solo queue, true solo queue, you have 4 random people on your team. Sometimes it's fine. Like, I've gotten crazy advantages jungling Pikachu, but I don't really recommend it. At the end of the day, there's always these all-rounders that you can pick from that are actually just good junglers, and Greninja, Cinderace that you can pick from. Pikachu's phenomenal in lane. You definitely want to be laning it. And Venusaur, you know, I haven't played a ton of Venusaur this patch. I've played a decent amount of it. It's a good jungler, really solid jungler, but I don't think you need to jungle it too much. If you want to get really ahead with it, you can try to. It's a solid laner. The thing about Venusaur is that with the indirect buffs, or the indirect nerfs to Buddy Barrier, Venusaur having like Giga Drains, damage reduction, and healing makes this thing kind of like something that they have to deal with now. They already had to, and now it's just like everything else is dying while this thing is staying alive. So it doesn't actually have the best laning phase. It's got a good laning phase, but the team fight is really, really good. So whether you're jungling this or laning it, I think that Venusaur is incredibly strong and definitely deserves to be played. Gardevoir. This character is going to go up and down, patch after patch. I think Gardevoir feels strong. It's not my favorite to lane. I've seen people do it. The early laning part of it struggles a little bit. I don't really prefer laning it. I just think you're going to struggle if you do it, but you can. As far as jungle goes, it's a solid pick. I think there's better, especially in this current patch. I do think that there's better. Although, if you can get to endgame and not be super, super behind, this Unite move is very, very good. Hard CC Unite moves, I think, are really, really strong this patch because things die really, really quickly. So it feels like a really solid option for jungle. And Decidueye, you know, this character is just going to keep going up and down for me as well. I don't think that this character is bad. The problem is that I think that the game is super, super burst focused. And Arrow, like Spirit Shackle is a great burst tool, but it's not as good as somebody just diving on this character and one-shotting it. And so this character solely, I'm putting it in B+ tier just because I think it dies super fast in a meta that's really, really bursty. So the team fight on it's just not great. For the sake of saying, I think that this character is not very good in lane. It's okay in lane. I can't stand laning against it, or laning with it, like on my team. It feels like it just gets so easily shut down and it has a hard time farming. But if you pair it with something that can farm well, it's okay. And then jungle-wise, it's okay. It's just an okay pick. All right, probably the literal biggest winner of this entire patch for the defenders is Trevenant. This character is crazy. The irony is that the early game is really, really bad. It is so bad. Still, it feels like Phantom is hard to evolve. So if you can evolve it, that's great. And then you're going to have a great game with it. But that's been my experience personally. But the character itself is actually crazy. It does crazy damage. Feels like it never dies. And it's just really, really solid and annoying to deal with. Really, really solid and annoying to deal with. So, yeah, there you have Trevenant. Trevenant brings great ult to the table. Definitely a laning defender that's worth playing. Mamoswine, you know, this is another one of those that I have a hard time placing exactly because it feels good, but I just feel like there's better options. And so I think I'm going to put it in the B+ tier. It's a solid defender for laning. The early game on Mamoswine is actually probably the best part of it, but it's not the best pick, I don't think. It's pretty solid as a defender. Pretty solid. That's kind of like what B+ tier feels like. The B+ tier is like the pretty solid tier, but there's probably always something better. As for Crustle, I think that this is still one of the worst characters in the game, unfortunately. The only niche that it has... Okay, so Crustle's niche before was scoring and score shielding. That's dead, because you can't do that with Buddy Barrier and Score Shield anymore. now the only actual niche it has is like being an objective ripper with stealth rocks crits and like fluffy tail, and that's not the end of the world. Like, it's actually decent. Like, I can probably win games, and yeah, I can win games doing that, but there's just always something better. You have to lane the character, you're not jungling or anything, but just not, it doesn't bring enough to the table to even warrant actually picking it over anything else, unless you're just like having fun. That's actually the only reason why I think you would do it. As for Greedent doesn't feel super nerfed, not enough to the point of not playing it. First of all, Bullet Seed and Stuffed Cheeks wasn't touched at all, and that build is fine. But I still think Covet Belch seems strong. You can stack with this character, it lanes great. I don't know how viable Invade Greedent is currently, but I'm sure you can do it just fine if you want to. And yeah, Greedent just feels really, really strong. It feels solid. It doesn't feel like it's at its former, you know, like S tier or A+ tier glory. I just think that it's a solid option. So I pulled it down a couple tiers, or like a tier. I don't really remember where I had it at, but it's up there in terms of just being a good option, a really, really good option. Unfortunately for Snorlax as a defender, I just don't think that this character is very good. Flail-Lax, ironic enough, this character has two completely different playstyles. You have tank build, and then you have like Flail-Lax. Flail-Lax, ironic enough, is probably like up here. But overall, the character is mostly like defendery, so I don't know how to put this character on the tier list twice. I'm going to leave it in C tier. I think the Unite move in this character is really bad. I think that overall it just feels like it doesn't really do enough. And yeah, it can just like solo people with a Flail-Lax build. That's really like all it can do, is solo people with a Flail-Lax build. I don't think it's really worth playing. It's definitely struggling a little bit. Yeah, all right. Then we have Slowbro, and Slowbro is making it in the A+ tier for one reason. First of all, this tank is great. It's a phenomenal tank. Brings really good CC to the table with Surf and then Surf Plus at level 11. But the big reason why I'm putting Slowbro high up is because of the fact that buddy barriers have been nerfed, and if you ult someone in endgame and your teammates follow up, that person is going to die. That character is going to get knocked out, and there's not really much they can do about it. It's like a free delete button now. It was already almost that before, but they could stack buddies on the player and then, like, you know, snowball that into a team fight, like, you know, turn that around into a team fight. But you can't really do that anymore. So I think that Slowbro feels pretty good. You do need teammates. I think that this is much more of like a duo trio queue pick. Again, I'm not going into games picking Trevenant and Slowbro in solo queue. But if you're playing with people, I think that they're great options. And Slowbro definitely feels like that. Now, the probably best solo queue defender in the game is Blastoise. This character, Rapid Spin Hydro Pump, or Rapid Spin Water Spout, sorry. Rapid Spin Water Spout is just crazy right now. You just run people down, you do crazy damage. It can jungle phenomenally. It can lane pretty well. Yeah, this character's an animal. It's really, really good. Like I said, I think it's the best solo queue defender to play, just because of its carry potential. Brings crazy team fight, brings crazy damage. I'm dropping 80, 90, 100k damage games with Blastoise coming out of jungle. You might be able to even get that more if you're laning it, just because you get some of that laning time to fight. But yeah, really, really strong pick. All right, let's move into the Speedsters. Now, Talonflame still feels super solid. I think it feels a little less impactful to me overall, and that's probably just because the burstiness of the game. Like, I think that playing a bursty character is strong, but I think that being a character that can get bursted is also volatile. So, and that's like for pretty much anybody in the game. Talonflame feels good, but it doesn't feel like it's like that S tier solo queue carry to me anymore. And the other thing, I have to just be honest, I've never been the best Talonflame. It's probably one of my weaker characters, surprising enough. Not the best laner, don't recommend laning it. It's definitely a jungler, but it's never really been my best character. So I could see why someone might put this A+ tier. I'm going to throw it in A. I think it's just solid. Really, really good character to pick, but definitely not my go-to as far as jungling goes. Yeah. It lost its scoring niche a little bit too, because Talonflame was really good at just like maneuvering the map and scoring. It lost that a little bit, but I don't think that that's a reason why. It just doesn't feel like it's the strongest option to me in the game, but it feels good. It feels fine. As for Gengar, I think Gengar might be the best speedster in the game now. It is the best speedster in the game. This character can snowball a game super hard. Jungling it, you don't want to lane Gengar. Lane Gengar is not very good in my opinion. But yeah, if you jungle this character, you can get ahead. You can have really big impact in early ganks, 850. You can re-gank between 850Bs and 720Bs. And yeah, you just blow people up, man. This thing absolutely just like wipes people off the face of the earth, and it's crazy. Then we have Zeraora. Now here's the thing with Zeraora. I think that this character is actually better than Talon, but the level curve still holds this character back. I think that this character could be the best speedster in the game, and it feels insanely strong. I don't like laning it, and the main reason why is because you're working so hard for so much experience that you just can't get. So I do only really recommend jungling it. I don't think it's a very great laner just because of the experience required. But this character is just literally about scaling to endgame. You're playing Zeraora just to hit level 10, and then from level 10 plus, you become something that is hard for them to deal with, or at least something that they have to manage and deal with. So the character struggling a little bit just because it's so far out from its like actual power spikes. Like you're basically kind of useless feeling until you're like level 8. But once you hit like level 8 and once you get the Unite move, you're kind of like a Pokemon that can fight. But it feels really strong to have this character in endgame. So their aura feels good, but not the best. And a big winner of this patch, at least in solo queue, for both laning and for jungling, is Absol. Absol is just so good right now. It's partially the EXP bug. Again, I don't want to talk on that too much, but this is mainly a solo queue thing. Like solo duo trio. This character doesn't really get played in 5 stacks, but it can snowball games super hard. It just feels like it dominates right now. Absol feels incredibly strong in both lane and jungle. It's not my favorite laning option, but it can do it just fine, honestly. It can honestly lane just fine. It's got good mobility, so that's a really big prerequisite to being a pretty decent laner at some point. Or one of the prerequisites, not necessarily the only one. All right, moving into the support category. Last but not least category, Hoopa. Hoopa is the best Pokemon in the game. I'm so certain of it. The Unite move is game changing. You basically have macro decision making in solo queue, which is like for your team, as long as they take it, right? If they don't take the Hoopa Unite, then you can't really help them out. But you have macro decision making on a support that does damage. Like, what more could you ask for from a support? Hyperspace Hole is amazing. You can reset. Trick and like Shadow Ball build got nerfed a little bit, but it honestly still feels good. I think that the part that nerfed it the most is the range. Like, it's actually kind of hard, and you can kind of like fail your trick and only accidentally trick yourself. I had some games where I felt like it didn't happen at all. I had one game that I played with Hoopa recently. It was probably my last game that I played with Hoopa. I felt like I missed every single trip because I was just outside of range, and right when I go to click it, they're out of range, and then I trick myself. So if you're missing your tricks and you're trying to play Trick Shadow Ball, you're gonna miss a lot of value, because it's basically half your Shadow Balls are gone. So yeah, you don't want to do that. But I think that Hyperspace Hole is still great. The character feels insane. It's again, it's the best Pokemon in the game. I'm certain of it. It feels very good. Then we have Mr. Mime. Now, Mr. Mime doesn't feel useless to me, but it doesn't feel super impactful. I just don't really see the reason of running it at all, really. But it's not the worst character in the game. I'm gonna put it in B tier. It's just kind of like to be avoided, in my opinion. I think you just kind of want to avoid the character for now. For the time being. Yeah. Okay. Yeah, I guess that's my opinion. Eldegoss. I am pulling Eldegoss down from the A+ tier because I'm spreading this tier list out. Don't want to like say that she's worse than she was before. Just kind of spreading the tier list out a little bit. I think the character is great. A really solid option. It doesn't really matter if I put it here. I just don't really want to stack the single list too much. But yeah, Eldegoss, phenomenal pick. Blissey, we'll go ahead and do that. Phenomenal pick. These are your supporters that go super well. Does it make sense to not just put them in A+ tier? I don't know if it matters. We'll just put them up here. There's room for it. They feel like they're phenomenal picks. Truly phenomenal picks. And then we have Wiggly, who I actually think that Wiggly doesn't feel as impactful. This is not because I'm just out of room. I actually feel like Wiggly doesn't feel as impactful as some of the other defenders. So Wiggly, I wonder if anybody's really playing Wiggly in competitive right now, but Wiggly feels like the Unite move is strong, but it's like hard to still keep people alive. It's mostly just the anti-CC, but this is kind of where I'm landing on things. Blissey Eldegoss, good supporters, really solid. I think Blissy's, I might be underrating how good Blissey is right now, even though I still have it at A tier or A plus tier. I just think like in general, like I might be just not giving it enough credit verbally. But yeah, this is my list. Every time I make a tier list, I still have like my reservations and want to like move things around. I still want to shift things around, but this is mostly what I'm thinking. It looks good. Again, to recap, B plus and up, you're going to be solid. I would recommend A plus or A and up if you're trying to truly climb. Like A and up, you're going to do really well with this set of characters. B plus is like, yeah, you can get by playing them. I think that they're gonna do you well. B, C, and D tier, I would just avoid playing them mostly in ranked if you're trying to climb. I don't think they're going to be super impactful. So friends, let me know your thoughts in the comment section down below. Drop a like on the video, subscribe to the channel for future Pokemon Unite content. This is what I'm thinking. Definitely, like I said, give or take some swaps here and there. And it's all relatively speaking, just compared to the changes that have happened, the current meta, like what other people are running, and then relative to the other characters. So there you have it. As always, be sure to be kind to one another, tell someone you love them, and I'll see you on the next video.